It's better to light a candle than to complain about the darkness. This simple quote captures the essence of Ajahn Brahm, a modern Buddhist monk known for his wisdom, humor, and down-to-earth approach to life's challenges. Born in London as Peter Betts, he studied theoretical physics at Cambridge University. But he soon made an extraordinary decision to leave behind the academic world and become a monk in the Thai Theravada tradition. Today, he serves as the abbot of Bodhinyana Monastery in Serpentine, Western Australia. With a rare blend of British wit and heartfelt kindness, he reaches millions of people online. Ajahn Brahm is also the author of the best-selling book, Opening the Door of Your Heart. His service to the community has earned him the Order of Australia, one of the nation's highest honors. In an age overwhelmed by stress and noise, Ajahn Brahm offers clarity and comfort. His teachings are refreshing, uplifting, and always grounded in real-life situations, making timeless Buddhist wisdom accessible and practical for anyone seeking peace of mind. In 1983, a small group of unknown monks set out to build a monastery in the remote bushland of Western Australia. They had no money to hire builders, and the cost of materials had already stretched their limited resources. So Ajahn Brahm had no choice but to learn how to lay bricks and pour concrete himself. In his own words, "Being a monk, I had patience and as much time as I needed. I made sure every single brick was perfect, no matter how long it took. Eventually, I completed my first brick wall and stood back to admire it. That's when I saw it. Oh no, I'd missed 2 bricks. All the others were lined up perfectly, but these 2 were tilted off. They looked terrible. They ruined the whole wall. I asked the abbot if I could knock it down and start over. He said no, the wall had to stay. I was embarrassed. I hated anyone seeing it. Then one day, a visitor came by and complimented the wall. I was shocked. I asked him, "Can't you see the 2 bad bricks?" And what he said next changed everything. "Yes, I can see those 2 bad bricks, but I can also see the 998 good ones." How often do we fixate on the flaws, our own or others, and overlook everything that is right, solid, and beautiful? We zoom in on the imperfect and let it eclipse the whole picture. Yet reality, in its fullness, is already the result of countless causes and conditions. If things were meant to be different, they would be. There is a deep wisdom that unfolds beyond our control, and in that grand unfolding, our limited perspective is just a single thread in a far greater tapestry. So instead of obsessing over the crooked bricks in our lives, why not pause and see the 998 good ones holding the wall together? Many people misunderstand karma. They see it as cosmic punishment, a kind of retribution for past misdeeds. But as Ajahn Brahm points out, that's only half the story. He explains this through a simple metaphor of 2 women baking a cake. The first woman has almost nothing. Cheap white flour, no eggs, just a bit of stale butter, and some worn-out baking tools. The second has everything: organic flour, fresh eggs, sweet fruit, and a state-of-the-art kitchen. Naturally, you'd expect the second to bake the better cake. But in truth, there's something even more important than the ingredients: skill. The same is true of karma. You may be born into poverty. You might face hardship, trauma, or loss. Life may hand you the roughest ingredients, but if you're wise, resilient, and resourceful, you can still craft something beautiful. The outcome depends on how you work with what you're given. Ajahn Brahm illustrates this with one of his favorite parables. One day, a donkey wandered too close to an old dry well and fell in. Trapped at the bottom, he cried out, his brays echoing against the cold stone walls. A man heard the noise, looked down, and instead of helping, returned with a shovel. Grinning, he began tossing dirt into the well, intending to bury the donkey alive, just for fun. At first, the donkey panicked, but then something clicked. With each shovelful of dirt, he shook it off. Stepped up, shake it off, step up. Again and again. Inch by inch, the donkey rose, until finally his head appeared at the rim. With one last push, he leapt out, kicked the man aside, and trotted off, battered but free. As Ajahn Brahm puts it, when life shovels dirt on you, shrug it off, tread it in, and you'll always stand higher. Hardship isn't a sign that something's wrong. It's just life being life. You can curse the dirt, or you can use it to rise. In life, it's almost guaranteed. You will encounter people who frustrate, irritate, or even deeply offend you. They don't behave the way you wish they would. Some are selfish, others are abrasive. Many are simply unaware or inconsiderate. So, how should we respond? Ajahn Brahm's first piece of advice is disarmingly simple, yet deeply profound. Stop playing the punisher. If you're a Buddhist, trust that karma will take care of it. If you believe in God, leave the judgment to the divine. If you believe in psychology, remember, guilt is often its own punishment. Instead of carrying the heavy burden of anger, resentment, or the need to retaliate, Ajahn Brahm invites us to walk a different path. Use compassion and loving kindness against difficult people. Most of the time, you only have to deal with them for a few minutes or hours. But they live with themselves every moment of every day. Ask yourself, what kind of suffering must a person be carrying to behave that way? What unresolved wounds or hidden pain are leaking through their actions? Ajahn Brahm offers another powerful insight. Difficult people are spiritual teachers in disguise. They reveal your triggers, your attachments, your ego. They shine a light on the very parts of yourself that still need work. He often speaks of his own teacher, Ajahn Chah, who would torture his students, not with cruelty, but with subtle provocations meant to help them cultivate patience, equanimity, and the art of letting go. In the same way, someone who pushes your buttons isn't just a nuisance. They are an opportunity to practice awareness, build resilience, and grow in wisdom. But let's be clear, compassion doesn't mean passivity. Ajahn Brahm reminds us with his usual wit, he who turns the other cheek must visit the dentist twice. In other words, blind forgiveness isn't noble. It's naive. You wouldn't water the weeds in your garden. Likewise, you shouldn't nourish toxic behavior with silence or submission. Instead, Ajahn Brahm teaches the art of positive forgiveness. That means actively noticing the good in someone, however small, and reinforcing it with genuine kindness and praise. Over time, this encouragement helps the positive in them grow, while the negative quietly fades, starved of attention. In many cultures, the word guilty echoes in a courtroom, spoken by a judge sealed with the sharp crack of a gavel against wood. But outside the courtroom, we often become our own judge, jury, and executioner. When no one else punishes us, we find ways to punish ourselves. Guilt becomes a quiet sentence, carried out not in public but in the hidden chambers of the psyche. Ajahn Brahm once shared the story of a young woman who convinced her friends to go out for a night of fun. During the drive, the car hit loose gravel, skidded out of control, and crashed. One of her friends, a young woman, died in the accident. Another, a young man, was left paralyzed. She, the driver, walked away physically unharmed. He recalled, "My first instinct was to reassure her. It wasn't your fault. You didn't plan the accident. You never intended to harm anyone. These things happen. Let it go. Don't feel guilty." But then a second thought arose. She's probably heard that line 100 times already, and it clearly hasn't helped. So I paused. I looked more deeply into her suffering. Then I said something different. I told her, "It's good that you feel guilty." Her face shifted, first from sorrow to surprise, and then from surprise to relief. This woman wasn't just burdened by guilt over the accident. She was also feeling guilt for feeling guilty because everyone kept telling her not to. That second layer of guilt became a trap, blocking any path toward healing. But once she was given permission to feel what she already felt, she became open to transformation. Ajahn Brahm then suggested her to volunteer at a local hospital's rehabilitation ward. Assist those recovering from road trauma. In helping others, she could begin to help herself. Guilt is not embedded in the events themselves. It's what we layer on top, often conditioned by culture, not nature. The answer is not to deny guilt or to pretend it doesn't exist. The answer is to understand it, accept its presence, and then channel it into meaningful action. If guilt is finding fault with the past, then fear is finding fault with the future. Ajahn Brahm captures this beautifully when he says, "If only we could remember how uncertain the future truly is, we'd stop trying to predict what could go wrong." And that's where fear ends. To illustrate this, he often shares a classic Buddhist parable. A man is being chased by a tiger. Desperate to escape, he leaps into a dry well, only to find a poisonous snake waiting at the bottom. He catches hold of a fragile tree root to stop himself from falling. But then he sees two mice, one black, one white, slowly gnawing at the root. His grip won't last forever. It's a hopeless situation. And then, out of nowhere, a drop of honey falls from a beehive above. He tastes it, and in that moment, he savors its sweetness completely. This is more than just a story. It's a profound teaching about mindfulness. Even in the midst of danger, chaos, or uncertainty, the present moment offers peace. Fear dissolves when attention rests fully in the now. The parable ends here, but people often ask, but what happens next? Ajahn Brahm, with his trademark humor, adds a lighthearted twist. The tiger, in its greed, slips and falls into the well, lands on the snake, kills it, but is poisoned and dies. The man, unharmed, climbs out. It's a funny and optimistic ending, but the real lesson lies beneath the humor. The only certainty about the future is its uncertainty. Trying to control what hasn't yet happened only breeds anxiety. Wisdom lies in doing your best now, fully present, fully alive. And from that place of presence, the future can be met with calm, clarity, and quiet confidence. Anger is rarely logical. It tends to flare up when our expectations collide with reality. We expect the traffic light to turn green, but it stubbornly stays red. We expect our boss to be understanding, but he snaps instead. We wish our partner would complain less, but the complaints only grow louder. In our minds, life should go the way we planned. And when it doesn't, anger takes the wheel. To justify that anger, we often invent a villain. We assume others acted out of cruelty, ignorance, or disrespect, without ever questioning our assumptions. The judgment comes before the trial has even begun. The Buddha once said, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned." Ajahn Brahm offers 3 practical steps to cool the flames of anger. First, become aware of your expectations. Pause and ask yourself, what was I expecting that didn't happen? Second, accept reality. The world isn't built to follow your script. Trying to control everything is like trying to stop the tide. It only leads to frustration. Third, seek understanding. Question your assumptions. Did the person really mean harm? Are they maybe in pain themselves or simply unaware? This shift in perspective opens the door to compassion, and with compassion, forgiveness becomes possible. For Ajahn Brahm, forgiveness is letting go of the past so it doesn't keep hurting you. Forgiveness, he reminds us, is not weakness. It's freedom, earned through awareness and steady practice. He shares a humorous story that shows how even well-trained monks are still not immune to anger. During a 60-day mountain retreat, a Western monk joined dozens of others in deep meditation, from 3 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day, with minimal rest. It was brutal. His body ached, but the monk, tough in mind and will, endured it all by counting down the days and hours until his release. At last, after what felt like an eternity, the final gong rang. A wave of relief swept over him. The finish line was finally in sight, his mind filled with visions of a warm bath and the comfort of home. Then the master struck the gong again. He announced, This has been an exceptional retreat. Many monks have made great progress and have privately suggested we extend the retreat by another 2 weeks. I believe this is a wonderful idea. So the retreat continues. Carry on sitting. In that moment, the monk's mind went blank. The physical pain disappeared, replaced by a tsunami of rage. He was ready to strangle those inspiring monks with his bare hands. 15 minutes passed, his mind still storming with anger when the gong rang again. The retreat is over, the master smiled. Confused and still fuming, the monk approached a senior teacher. What just happened? I thought we were meditating for 2 more weeks. The elder monk chuckled softly. Don't worry. He does this every year. Ajahn Brahm often illustrates the wisdom of letting go through personal anecdotes. One such story comes from his time as a young monk in Thailand, where he was helping construct a new ceremonial hall. After laying the foundation, there was a large pile of earth left over. The abbot instructed the monks to move it to the back of the monastery. For 3 long days they toiled under the tropical sun, shoveling, pushing wheelbarrows, and sweating through each grueling hour. Just as they were about to finish, the abbot left for a trip. The deputy abbot inspected the site and said the earth had been moved to the wrong place. It had to be relocated. Again. Frustrated but obedient, the monks repeated the backbreaking work. Another 3 days passed, the air thick with heat and exhaustion. Finally, as they neared completion for the second time, the abbot returned. Why did you move the earth here? I told you it was to go in that other spot. Move it back there. Ajahn Brahm remembers. I was angry, I was livid, I was ropeable. Can't those senior monks decide among themselves first? This monastery is so disorganized, they can't do this to me. I was cursing in English so that the Thai monks cannot understand. I began to notice that the angrier I was, the heavier the wheelbarrow felt. One of my fellow monks saw me grumbling, came over and told me, "Your trouble is that you think too much." He was so right. As soon as I stopped whinging and whining, the wheelbarrow felt much lighter to push. I learned my lesson. Thinking about moving the earth was the hardest part. Moving it was easy. There are 2 kinds of freedom in life: the freedom of desires and the freedom from desires. Modern Western culture overwhelmingly celebrates the first. It is embedded in democratic ideals and consumer economies. This notion that true freedom means having the right and the means to pursue whatever you want. The freedom to grow, acquire, consume, and become. But along with that pursuit comes stress, dissatisfaction, environmental degradation, and deepening inequality. The second kind of freedom, freedom from desires, is rarely acknowledged in mainstream society, but it lies at the heart of spiritual traditions across the world. This is the freedom that comes not from having more, but from needing less. It may lack the comforts that modern life offers, but as Ajahn Brahm says, contentment is the only time you have enough. To illustrate this, he often tells a story about a conversation between a Buddhist monk and a group of prison inmates. One of his fellow monks had been visiting a prison regularly and had grown close to a small group of inmates. During one visit, the monk described life in a monastery. He wakes up at 4 a.m., eats just 1 meal a day, has no television, no radio, no music. He works hard, speaks little, and in his free time he simply sits cross-legged, observing his thoughts. At night he sleeps on the floor. The prisoners were stunned. The austerity sounded even harsher than their prison life. One of them joked, "You should just stay here in our cell, it might be more comfortable." What began as a laugh turned into a moment of insight. The difference, as they all came to realize, was simple but profound. In the monastery, the monk wants to be there. In prison, the inmates don't. In other words, no matter how luxurious a place is, if you don't want to be there, it's a prison. And no matter how simple a life is, if you accept and embrace it, it becomes a sanctuary. So how do we escape the prisons of our lives? Not by wishing to be in a different situation, because that's often just exchanging one set of problems for another. The real escape is internal. As Ajahn Brahm teaches, by changing your perception of your job, relationship, or body, by accepting the situation rather than not wanting it, then it no longer feels like a prison. When you are content to be where you are, this is when you are really free. This world is just the play of the senses, is the five khandhas doing their thing. Reality is not personal. People are just being people. Thoughts are just thoughts. Stop trying to control it. Stop identifying with it. Be the silent witness, not the actor caught in the drama. To illustrate the limits of our perception, Ajahn Brahm often refers to the well-known parable of the blind men and the elephant. 7 blind men who had never encountered an elephant before were each invited to touch a different part of it and describe what they believed it to be. The first, feeling the trunk, declared the elephant was like a snake. The second, touching the tusk, thought it was a plow. The third, examining the ear, insisted it was a palm leaf fan. The fourth, with his hand on the head, believed it was a large water jar. The fifth, feeling the massive torso, said it was a boulder. The sixth, holding the leg, thought it was a tree trunk. The last, grasping the tail, was convinced the elephant was a fly whisk. Naturally, they began to argue. Each was certain of his view, and each was partly right, yet wholly wrong. In the parable, the elephant represents reality. The blind men represent us, clinging to limited perceptions, mistaking partial truths for the complete picture. Instead of letting go, we argue, we defend, we divide. Ajahn Brahm suggests a wiser path. Recognize that our minds are inherently limited. Rather than rigidly clinging to our views, we can let them go and be more open. Open to dialogue, open to other perspectives, open to seeing more clearly. And perhaps in this gentle humility, we begin to see the elephant, reality, not as we imagine it, but more as it truly is. Ajahn Brahm coined the term kindfulness as a deepening of the well-known concept of mindfulness. It's a form of awareness that includes the heart as well as the mind. Where mindfulness is about paying attention, kindfulness is about how we pay attention, with gentleness, compassion, and care. It's a fusion of clear awareness and loving kindness, and it lies at the very heart of Ajahn Brahm's teachings on meditation and daily life. It's not just watching your breath, he explains. It's watching your breath with kindness. To be kindfully aware is not only to notice what is happening in the present moment, but to do so with a heartfelt embrace, offering goodwill to the moment, to others, and to ourselves.